On New Year's Eve, Roberto, an older man, joins a crowd as they count down to midnight. With each clock chime, they eat a grape, a local tradition for good luck. After the celebration begins, Roberto quietly walks home alone. In the following days, he sticks to his usual routine, doing chores, exercising, and spending quiet nights dancing and drinking alone in his apartment. One morning, as he heads to his motorcycle, a woman named Miriam approaches him. She introduces her new boyfriend, Manuel, and shows affection for him right in front of Roberto, who we learn is her ex-husband. Later, Roberto shares what happened with his friends. His friends, Margarita and Jose, suggest he should travel to bring some joy back into his life. But when Roberto joins a group trip for seniors, he finds it unpleasant. Still, Margarita encourages him to try again. She believes Miriam might still care for him and is only pretending to be happy with someone else to make him jealous. Roberto disagrees, but Margarita insists. Jose thinks differently. He believes Miriam has moved on and that Roberto should too. Their conversation shifts when Jose says there are reasons people date younger partners. Margarita takes it the wrong way and questions him, thinking he might be interested in someone younger. Jose denies it, saying he just understands why some older people might feel that way. That evening, Roberto's son, Alfonso, rings the buzzer at his apartment. Roberto assumes he's only there to ask for money, so he doesn't let him in. Later that night, feeling lonely and remembering what his friends said, Roberto starts thinking about finding a roommate for company. At first, he's open to anyone, but when he writes an online ad, he says he's looking for a woman. Not long after, a woman named Carmen comes to see the place. She likes the apartment right away and quickly decides to rent the guest room, even paying the deposit immediately. She especially loves how the sunlight fills the living room. But Roberto explains that only the guest room is for rent. They won't be sharing the rest of the apartment. Carmen is a little disappointed, but agrees to stay. She moves in while Roberto is out. That night, as she gets ready for bed, she realizes she forgot her toothpaste. Hoping it won't be a problem, she quietly uses some of Roberto's. Still, she worries he might not be happy if he notices. Late at night, Roberto comes home and is surprised to see Carmen already there. She explains that she sent him a message about arriving that day, but it seems he didn't see it. Since it's already late, Roberto decides they can sort things out in the morning. The next day, he finds Carmen in the living room, enjoying the sunlight. She says she woke up early and wanted some sun since her room doesn't get much light. She also mentions that sunlight is good for health, which she believes helps both of them. Roberto, amused by her reasoning, lets her stay. As time goes on, the two begin to get along. Carmen jokes that she could write a story about how her roommate kept her from enjoying the living room. When Roberto asks what she means, she says he doesn't seem like someone who would do. Faith seems too kind. She then teases him, saying he might be hiding something. Roberto smiles and plays along, joking that his soul is stuck in the apartment. He gently explains that because they don't know each other well yet, and since there's an age gap, needs time to feel comfortable sharing more of his space. One day, Carmen finds Roberto quietly meditating in the living room. She gently asks if she can borrow his exercise ball and stretch there, as the space is bigger than her room. Roberto agrees, and she begins her routine, unaware that her movements catch his attention. Later, Roberto tells his friend Carlos about his new roommate. Carlos becomes curious, especially when he hears that Carmen is studying art. This makes Carlos consider renting out his own extra room. Roberto admits that living with someone young can be a bit distracting, but he also says that Carmen brings a new kind of happiness to his home. One evening, Carmen is knitting gloves in the living room. She says she finds it calming. Roberto joins the conversation and talks about how much he enjoys dancing. Carmen seems interested, so Roberto plays a record and starts to dance. To his surprise, Carmen gets up and dances with him, and the two share a fun night together. Another night, Roberto finally sits down with his son, Alfonso. Alfonso says he's worried because his father has been acting differently. He asks for a key to the apartment so he can check in sometimes, but Roberto says no. Alfonso explains that he's not just worried, he also can't pay his own rent anymore and wants to move in. Roberto, though, thinks his son should manage on his own as a grown man. He also jokes that he might start dating again and needs his space. Hearing this, Alfonso understands and decides to leave. The next day, Roberto accidentally opens the bathroom door while Carmen is showering. He quickly steps back out before she sees him, but the moment leaves him feeling a bit flustered. Later, he places roses on the dining table while Carmen prepares dinner. During their meal, he compliments her cooking, and she smiles, thanking him before changing the subject. She asks about his job, and Roberto explains that he's retired and lives comfortably on his pension. Carmen then brings up his ad, wondering if he chose a young female roommate because he wanted company. Roberto replies that he doesn't believe youth is all that special. He shares his thoughts about how society often values young people more than older ones, even though older adults have already given so much. He says the young are still full of potential, while the old are often ignored, despite their contributions. He also tells Carmen that, at 23, her view of life is still growing. He explains that her generation grew up safe, thanks to the struggles of those who came before. Carmen listens and admits she's been fortunate, then thanks him for his thoughts. Later, Roberto hears that his friend Carlos also rented out his spare room to a young woman. Carlos says she's very attractive but complains that she doesn't seem very thoughtful. After hearing about Carmen, he wishes his new tenant was more like her. Sometime after, Roberto finds Carmen in his office. She quickly explains that she's not there to bother him, she's working on one of his sculptures. Carmen says she's restoring the angel statue for a school project as part of her art studies. Roberto smiles as Carmen works on restoring his angel sculpture, telling her it once belonged to his grandmother. Carmen jokes that she must be an angel too, since she's helping bring it back to life. Roberto laughs and agrees, feeling comfortable trusting her with something so valuable. As they grow closer, Roberto invites Carmen on a motorcycle ride. During this time, his friend Jose tells his wife, Margarita, that Roberto seems happier since Carmen moved in. But Margarita feels uneasy, worried that this kind of setup could lead to trouble. Meanwhile, Roberto and Carmen enjoy an evening out at a local pub. Carmen's presence brings out a fun side of him, and he drinks more than he should even after she reminds him he has to drive. Back home, he ends up with a headache the next morning. For the first time, he lets Carmen into his room so she can look after him. While there, they talk about a replica painting he owns called The Kiss. They even have a small disagreement about what the artist meant by it. These talks bring them closer, and in the days that follow, they spend more time together. However, one afternoon they get into a serious argument. The topic turns to women in difficult situations. Carmen says that unfair systems have pushed women to make hard choices just to survive. Roberto, on the other hand, believes that choosing how to earn a living in difficult ways can be a form of freedom. He adds that, in his view, people exchange parts of themselves in many ways, even in relationships. He says that marriage often includes a trait of care and stability. He also thinks that having options, even ones society doesn't always approve of, helps people who are often ignored. Carmen strongly disagrees, saying that no one should feel pressured into such choices and that people can live fulfilling lives without them. Their views clash, leaving both of them upset. One evening, Alfonso buzzes into his father's apartment, but is surprised when a woman answers. Carmen is also surprised to learn that he's Roberto's son. She lets him in, confused about why Roberto never mentioned her to Alfonso. They spend time talking, and Carmen learns more about Roberto's past. Alfonso tells her that his parents separated because his father believed his mother was unfaithful, though there was no clear proof. He also shares that both of them were singers, and their split ended their music projects. Alfonso then mentions that he plays the drums and invites Carmen to his place to hear him play. She agrees, and at his apartment he performs for her. Carmen starts dancing to the rhythm, and Alfonso joins in. Afterward, he thanks her for coming, saying most people turn down his invitations. She compliments his music, and he tells her she's welcome to visit any time. Later, when Carmen returns home, Roberto questions why she stayed out so late. She's surprised that he waited for her and asks why it matters. Roberto says he knows he's not her father but still cares about her safety. Carmen reminds him that they're just roommates and then reveals she was with Alfonso. This upsets Roberto even more. He criticizes his son's behavior, but Carmen fires back, accusing him of being jealous. Roberto tells Carmen that he cares about her deeply, but she doesn't take his words seriously and reminds him that she's an adult who can make her own choices. Later, she goes to his room and asks him not to let the night end in an argument. Carmen then gently admits that she has feelings for him and invites him to stay close. Roberto, feeling unsure, places a pillow between them, trying to keep a bit of space. Still, Carmen moves closer, hoping he'll respond. To her surprise, Roberto kindly steps back. He explains that she's still young and might be confusing real love with comfort or care. He tells her that his feelings are more like those of a father, not romantic. Because of that, he doesn't think it would be right to take things further. Carmen is a little hurt, but accepts his honesty. She gives him a goodnight kiss on the cheek and returns to her room. A few days later, Roberto and his friend Carlos agree to switch roommates. Carmen moves out, and Sonia, Carlos's former tenant, moves in. Roberto tells Sonia that Carmen seemed to be looking for a father figure, and that wasn't something he wanted to take on. Sonia and Roberto agree to treat their shared home as a new kind of friendship. Meanwhile, Carmen settles into her new place with Carlos. He asks if she's comfortable there. She says things with Roberto started to feel confusing, and she believes he may have seen her in a romantic way. Carlos reassures her that she won't have to worry about that with him. Roberto notices Sonia's strange habit of leaving the bathroom door open while showering, which makes him uncomfortable. Carlos tells Carmen Sonia spends more time taking selfies than talking, unlike Carmen, who loves discussing books. This helps Carlos and Carmen grow closer through poetry. One day, Sonia prepares for a soccer scout meeting and takes many selfies. Roberto warns her about online dangers, but she isn't worried. Roberto cooks a full dinner while Sonia dances, but she declines to eat with him, waiting for a date instead, and leaves quickly. Carlos explains Sonia often uses dating apps for casual meetings. That night, Sonia comes home drunk, and Roberto helps her to bed. The next morning, Carlos tells Carmen he thinks Roberto is getting too close to his tenant. Carmen doesn't believe it, saying Roberto just tries to make others jealous. She shares how Roberto once pretended they were a couple to fool his ex-wife, but the kiss was rejected. Carlos asks if she's ever been jealous. Carmen says jealousy isn't love but control. Meanwhile, Sonia apologizes to Roberto for coming home drunk. They argue because she feels he treats her like a child. She tells him to go back to his old tenant, and Roberto says Sonia is different. Hurt, she leaves. Carmen and Carlos grow closer, enjoying each other's company. Carmen feels comfortable around him since he respects her space and helps her with little things. One evening, Sonia returns from shopping and shows Roberto her new dresses. She says she can't pay rent and offers to make it up by spending time together. Roberto hesitates but agrees, and they quietly share the evening. At the same time, Carmen visits her friend Katia's small apartment with Pedro. Katia complains Roberto won't let Carmen use other rooms. She invites Carmen to try her large bathtub, but Carmen waits until her landlord is away. Pedro asks if all three can fit. Katia says it's just for her and Carmen, but jokes Pedro can watch. As the women relax in the bath, they tease Pedro before closing the curtains. Outside, Pedro listened while Carmen and Katia both reflected quietly.
Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and stay connected with us.